If you're enjoying the content, make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a like. Your support means the world. The Isanti case, which primarily refers to the Isanti County murder trial, is a criminal case involving the tragic killing of a woman named Rochelle Forcier in 2017 in Isanti County, Minnesota. This case gained media attention because of the complex nature of the crime, the investigation, and the subsequent trial that ensued. Below is an analysis of the case, broken into key aspects of the crime, investigation, trial, and its broader implications. The central event in the Isanti case revolves around the brutal murder of Rochelle Forcier, a mother of three who was living in Isanti County, Minnesota, at the time of her death. Forcier's body was found on the morning of February 12, 2017, in a wooded area near a cabin that she had recently visited. She had been shot multiple times, and her body showed signs of significant trauma. Authorities were immediately suspicious, as the circumstances of her death were unusual. Forcier's family and friends had described her as someone who led a relatively peaceful life. However, investigators soon began to uncover that Forcier was involved in a tumultuous relationship with her ex-boyfriend Adam B.C. who would later be implicated in her murder. As investigators began piecing together the details surrounding Forcier's death, they quickly learned about the history of Forcier's relationship with Adam Johnson. Forcier and Johnson had been romantically involved for a time, but their relationship had ended on acrimonious terms. Johnson was known to have a violent history, and Forcier had reportedly attempted to distance herself from him in the months leading up to her death. According to evidence uncovered during the investigation, Forcier had communicated with her family and friends that she feared for her safety because of Johnson's increasingly aggressive behavior. She had even applied for a restraining order against him in the weeks prior to her death, though the order had not been finalized at the time of the murder. Authorities discovered that Johnson had a history of criminal activity, including multiple arrests for assault and other violent offenses. His criminal record and the disturbing behavior he had exhibited toward Forcier painted a clear picture of a man capable of committing violent acts. One of the critical pieces of evidence in the investigation was the discovery of Johnson's vehicle near the location where Forcier's body was found. Security camera footage from nearby areas also placed Johnson in the vicinity on the day of her death. Investigators also found DNA evidence that linked Johnson to the crime scene, including traces of his blood and other biological material that placed him at the scene of the murder. In addition to this physical evidence, investigators also uncovered a series of text messages and phone calls between Johnson and Forcier in the hours leading up to her death. These communications revealed that Forcier had been attempting to avoid Johnson, further solidifying the suspicion that he was involved in her murder. Johnson's attempts to conceal his involvement only deepened the investigators' suspicion, as he made inconsistent statements about his whereabouts and activities on the day of Forcier's death. In the months following the investigation, Johnson was arrested and charged with second-degree murder in connection with Forcier's death. The case proceeded to trial, where Johnson's defense attorneys argued that there was insufficient evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Johnson was responsible for Forcier's murder. The prosecution, on the other hand, presented a compelling case, relying heavily on the physical evidence, including the DNA found at the crime scene and the security footage that placed Johnson at the scene of the murder. Additionally, the prosecution presented testimony from Forcier's friends and family members who spoke to Johnson's violent tendencies and the toxic nature of his relationship with Forcier. During the trial, Johnson's defense attorneys attempted to suggest alternative explanations for the evidence, including claims that Forcier had been involved in dangerous activities that could have led to her death. They also sought to discredit the testimony of the prosecution's witnesses, questioning their credibility and reliability. Despite the defense's efforts, the jury ultimately found Adam Johnson guilty of second-degree murder. The verdict was a significant moment for the victim's family, who had long fought for justice for Forcier. Sentencing and aftermath. Following his conviction, Adam Johnson was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The sentencing was a solemn occasion for the Forcier family, who expressed relief that justice had been served but also frustration that they would never have their loved one back. The case underscored the tragic consequences of domestic violence and the need for greater awareness and support for victims of abusive relationships. In the wake of the trial, the Isanti case also prompted a wider conversation about domestic violence, the warning signs of abusive relationships, and the legal protection available to victims. Rochelle Forcier's death highlighted the risks faced by individuals trying to escape toxic and dangerous relationships. It also drew attention to the importance of law enforcement and legal systems in responding effectively to domestic violence claims, ensuring that victims receive the support they need and that abusers are held accountable. Broader implications. The Isanti case also raised important questions about the role of social media and digital communication in criminal investigations. The text messages and phone records that were critical in linking Johnson to the crime were instrumental in securing his conviction. This aspect of the case underscored how modern communication tools, while useful for staying connected, can also play a crucial role in tracking criminal activity and establishing timelines of events. Additionally, the case brought attention to the issue of restraining orders and whether they are sufficient to protect individuals from violent ex-partners. In Forcier's case, the fact that she had sought a restraining order but had not been fully protected highlights the gaps in legal protections for victims of domestic violence. Advocates for domestic violence survivors have called for stronger enforcement of restraining orders and more resources to help individuals in danger. Conclusion: the Isanti case was a tragic reminder of the deadly consequences of domestic violence and the lengths to which some individuals will go to maintain control over their victims. It was a case marked by heartbreaking loss and a determined fight for justice by Forcier's family. The conviction of Adam Johnson was an important step in securing that justice, but it also served as a call to action for greater efforts to prevent domestic violence and provide meaningful support for those at risk. The case's impact will likely continue to resonate in the Isanti community and beyond, sparking continued conversations about how best to protect victims of abuse and hold perpetrators accountable.